This week on the podcast, I am joined by one of my OG clients, Emma Edwards. Thank you for joining us, Em.
Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
Ladies, I thought it'd be super inspiring for you all to listen to Emma's story. I'm also intrigued for this conversation this week because there's so much that I don't know despite the amount of time that we've worked together now. But Emma has literally gone through the entire transformation process. Physical, mental, emotional, like she lives and breathes the lifestyle. I think by her own account, she's very much still a work in progress, but as we all are when we're in maintenance. But I think she'll really have some insight to share and hopefully a little bit of inspiration for everybody who's listening. So if you're listening to this and you are wondering how to get unstuck, and it does seem so easy what we see on social media, and it's how do we make it work for us in real life scenario. Has made that happen. Emma's got all of the things going on and has still made the transformation. So yeah, I won't intro you anymore, Emma. I'll let you give a little bit of an intro.
Thank you. So, hi, I'm Emma. I am 42. I live at home with my husband and two not too small children. I've got a nearly 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. I work full-time Monday to Friday, and my husband works away a lot. I've been one of Nick's one-to-one clients for nearly 3 years, which is just like crazy where the time's gone. But yeah, happy to be here and happy to share my story, I suppose. But disclaimer, I haven't got all my ducks lined up in a row, and it's not easy, or it's not perfect. But I do feel like I've come a long way, which is really, really good, and that's the main thing, I suppose.
I think that's the interesting part, isn't it, though, is that like it probably looks from the outside in like, oh, she's just got it all together. And I think sometimes we almost convince ourselves that it must be easier for other people. And we start to sort of, we just identify all the reasons why we can't do it, why we can't make it happen. And we just convince ourselves that it's not made for us. And actually, every time I speak to you, like I can honestly say there's probably a 50-50 split between the times when you've been like, Nick, I'm firing on all cylinders, everything's good. The other 50% of the time, we feel like we're in the weeds,
Yeah,
and it mightn't
yeah,
come across like that, but it's a constant work in progress. And I always think this because it is about decision making, isn't it? And it's
yeah.
just about knowing the better decisions to make for yourself. So it's always uncomfortable because there's always a decision to be made. I'm interested to maybe just hear from your perspective, like what the penny drop moments were, where you've seen like the biggest shifts. And then, maybe to let everybody who is listening in on some of your top hacks and tips and just the ways that you manage to sort of like stay consistent the way that you do. But before we get into that, I'd love a bit of background, your story.
Okay, so I'll start. So, growing up, I suppose, I was at home with mum and dad and my identical twin sister and my brother. Now, me and my sister, it feels a bit weird saying this because, the life we live now, but I suppose we carried a bit more weight than we probably should have done at our age. We weren't obese, but we were the chubby kids. We were active, don't get me wrong. I always remember playing out in the streets and everything, but we did, I wasn't in a football team, I wasn't swimming, I wasn't, gymnastics, all the rest of it. So sports and stuff like that just didn't come naturally to me when I was young. Thank God there was no social media or all that back then. Do you know what I mean? I feel the young ones growing up now, but so I don't ever remember being image conscious or anything like that. But my mum was always, in really good shape. She looked amazing, and she still does. But she was always on a diet, my mum, always. So, always ate differently to us, always, drank the skim milk and whatever else. And I remember when I left high school, your bodies are changing and you must consciously want to start doing things differently. So I was like, Mum, I want to start eating healthily. How do we do it? And what do we need to do? I suppose in like parrot fashion, I was like copying what my mum did. I think she was doing slim as well at the time. And it was like, well, okay, it was, it's a green day today, so you eat pasta, or it's a red day today, or so you eat meat. And, quite quickly I developed that diet mentality, and my mum was always and still is obsessed with the scale. So it was like, right, what's the number today? And I could see it every morning. Every morning she gets weighed. So I reckon from my early 20s, I was also, I was going to Weight Watchers. I had all the cookbooks. I had the shiny books, the scales, because they had the logo on. And I remember going to one of my first classes, and it was, okay, get weighed, and you sit down, you read people's success stories, or what soup have they made this week or whatever, and you walk away and you go back next week and you get weighed and you think, oh, this, I'm onto something here, I feel really good. And then, you're going to get weighed from work on the Monday or whatever day of the week it was. And I think I'd lost half a pound or something. And I couldn't, like, the tears were just flowing down my face. I thought I'd lost, a load of weight. It felt brilliant. But, people do it now. That whole one weigh-in, that weekly weigh-in dictates your whole week. And it's mind-blowing now looking back that, whatever it said in them scales, it was like either great or it was like, forget it, I'm going to go all out and just eat whatever anyway. Do you know what I mean? And
It's
it's
actually, when you think about it, it's so demoralising. When
Yeah.
you think about it, can you imagine us putting our daughters through that? And, like, waiting for the room to give you a round of applause, or
Oh dear, what have you done? Sort of thing. That's how it
yeah.
was. Yeah.
So I don't ever remember my mum going to slimming clubs, but I always remember, the way you have like the shelves in the freezer, and the top shelf was my mum's, and it was Weight Watchers ready meals in like a little cardboard pack, and you peel the lid off and you'd put it in the microwave. And so when you've just said then, oh, my mum always had different, so did mine. And it was like an unconscious. I was always quite sporty as a kid. So I was like in the sports teams and stuff. And I think genuinely, I think that was my savior from
Yeah.
going down that road of being in that diet mentality. And don't get me wrong, I've tried different diets. Of course I have, because your body starts to change. And, even in our 40s, it's understanding, isn't it, how to keep up with the changes and what we need to do differently. So yeah, so how long did that go on then?
So I found, because it worked, it was great. So I had that motivation. Now I realise there's a difference between motivation and discipline, I suppose. But I always had that motivation because it was only a short burst of time. It was like, right, I'm on Weight Watchers. I'm on it Monday to Friday because I want to get in that dress for the weekend. I was out with my mates.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, Sunday, I'm not really on it. And then I'm back to my diet on Monday and I'm going to get weighed this week or whatever. So years I yo-yoed. So I'd go to Weight Watchers, I'd lose a stone. 6 months later, you'd be on your merry way, and then it'd start creeping back on. And then before you know it, you're 10 pounds adrift. Oh, I'm going back to Weight Watchers next month because it works and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, and again, I never had a weight problem, but that was my only control. It was like the scales. It was like, I'm going back to Weight Watchers because it works. I'm going to buy the new bars this week and whatever, and because it's something else to eat. But it was always looking back. The only thing that I felt worked was a calorie deficit and a weekly weigh-in. And I never knew anything about nutrition. I didn't know anything other than just eat this amount of calories and you'll lose weight.
Yeah.
And that's all I've ever done.
I think the other scary thing is that, like, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, the food industry has changed so much.
Yeah.
So whereas, like, I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking, okay, so none of that was about the quality of what you're putting in. It was just based on eating this small amount and maybe restrict different things on different days. So pasta one day, whatever. But now it's such a minefield, the quality of food.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that we'll come on to this, but you and I are both big advocates of the quality over, just simply calorie tracking. And obviously at our workshop on Saturday, you were one of the clients who I said, like, you said to the group, you wouldn't believe what I eat.
Yeah.
And the way, and like, one of the things to get your head around has been eat more to sustain the physique that you're in.
Yeah.
But I think that now has become such a minefield, is that if you are only looking at a calorie deficit, oh, you're just so vulnerable to just living on junk processed food without even realising it.
Yeah. And it's not sustainable. And that's why the yo-yo comes back in, because you get to where you think you want to be. And then you're on your merry way, as you say. And then before you know it, you're back to square one or worse off. Do you know what I mean? So
when did you get into fitness then?
So I reckon probably early college age, I met a couple of girls and we used to do step aerobics and bits and bobs like that. And then I did get a gym membership probably early 20s, but it was only ever cardio. I never did any weight training. And I only ever knew it was like 20 minutes on the bike, 20 minutes walking or a little jog and like a cross trainer type machine sort of thing. There was no resistance training or anything. And it was probably only ever like once, twice a week, only of a weekend, I think. And then I think mid-20s, I went to Total Fitness. They did like loads of classes and everything. So I started doing more classes, a bit of swimming, probably got into it a bit more. And then, but widely, I look now and go, because I met my husband to be, and we had our first child, but it didn't do anything, during pregnancy or anything. I look now and go, God, it's so important to look after yourself, but it didn't do anything. And then after we had our first, after we had Jessica, we then got married. So it was like the diet wedding, and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when we had our second, one of my friends did CrossFit, and she was like, you should get into CrossFit. After we had our second, I did like a buggy, like a baby club. Yeah. And that was really good, like, postnatal sort of classes. And that's probably the first time I picked up weights. The lady that run the class, it was like a brilliant local class. She had like little dumbbells and stuff. And that's the first time I think I'd ever picked them up. So that was really good when I was on maternity leave. But then my friend introduced me to CrossFit. And I remember going to my first CrossFit class actually, and the coach was like, oh, if you don't keep fit and stuff. And, it's like, well, I've done like a baby class. And she must have looked at me and thought, well, this is a whole different ball game. But I'd started doing 2 CrossFits a week, and it's like nothing I'd ever done before. It was, complete different variety of exercises. And obviously the weights I'd never done, like, never lifted a barbell before, never been on the rig doing like gymnastic movements or anything like that. So that was my only kind of fitness. So when at the point I reached out to you, I was probably only doing 2 CrossFits a week and a bit of a jog. But I thought that was, I think that before I realised I needed to, do something differently, I thought I was doing enough to sustain, and it wasn't enough, because you change, don't you, as you get older, and you don't realise more.
I was going to come on to that question
Yeah.
about what brought you to the point when you first reached out to me, because I remember thinking, okay, you're already doing the hard part, which largely is you had some awareness around your diet. I think you knew it needed to change.
Yeah.
The fact that you were even like half attempting to eat well. We know now, don't we, in hindsight, that eating well by your standards was undereating.
Yeah.
That was leading to this yo-yo, because, and I see this with so many women, is that we class eating well as restricting ourselves, and that's just backwards in itself. But I remember thinking, like, she's training hard, but you were so, like, almost at a loss, weren't you?
Yeah.
Onto that call. So what got you to that point then? Like, had you been thinking about it for a while? Like, where were you at when you sort of thought, oh, I need to do something different?
Yeah. So I knew, so things were changing, and it's a weird feeling when things feel out of your control. So I was like, irritability was creeping in, low mood, just, my body just didn't feel my own. And, so I reached out to you before my 40th birthday, but I remember specifically it was a time in December, and it was actually one of my friends' 40th birthdays. And it's that time in between Christmas and New Year where you ate and drank myself into an oblivion. Didn't even know the day of the week it was. And I'm in the mirror getting ready. And I don't know whether this is just me, but you either put yourself into a category, you've got a flat tummy or you've got big legs, or, So I've always been lucky that when I put on weight, it's always been, I say lucky, I don't know in what aspect, but when I put on weight, it goes on my legs. So I've always had a flatter tummy. But I'm getting ready in the mirror, and I looked and I was like, what is this spare tire going around my belly? Like, what is going on? And it hadn't just happened overnight. It's obviously been there, it's been creeping up. And then I looked at my face and I'm like, wow, what? Who are you? I didn't recognise who was becoming. And it was like, wow, this is middle age. I'm going to be 40 next year. And then I was going out. So I probably did what most people do. I just like pulled my tights and thought, we'll go on with it. I'm going out.
Have a drink, I'll be all right.
Yeah. And you know what? I look back at pictures that night out and I don't recognise myself. I wasn't in a good place. I was, honestly, it was like an out of body experience. So I'd been following you for a couple of months, and I reached out to you then in the February, knowing that I was coming up to 40 in the July. And I was like, I need to change. Something needs to change, but I don't know what. And I suppose that's the point I contacted you, really. I just didn't know what I needed to do.
And so, I mean, and I vividly remember that, but obviously I didn't know the conversation about Christmas.
Yeah.
So, okay, because I remember that we got used to, like, I think we exceeded expectations by the time you got to your 40th.
Yeah.
And here we are now. We're going to be 43 this
I
year,
know.
of course. But okay, so from that moment then, from that initial call, and this is more for the benefit of anyone else listening, I suppose, but also from my selfish perspective as a coach, I'm intrigued to know, like, what was the biggest change for you initially
So initially, well, to be honest, it was like small steps initially. So we have that discovery call, and it's like, what steps are you doing? What you eating? What's your lifestyle like? And I think although I know we just touched on this, but I was like, well, I work full time. I'm doing like 6,000 steps. How can I do any more? And am I home with the kids? And although it wasn't resistant change, it was more like how I'm meant to do these things. But you helped me realize, the biggest thing was there's 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with them 24 hours? Are you going to get on the couch at night, or are you getting in the garage to work out? It's them sort of things. So initially it was the small steps. So I started making a lunch break for myself. So, you get a lunch break every day, but do you do anything? So
Yeah.
probably like 3 times a week, I was getting around the block. So if I was working from home, I would make myself go out the door. If I was working in the office, I was going around the block. So, making sure my steps, but we did things incrementally at first. So it was like, okay, you're probably doing 6,000 now. Why don't you try for 8,000 next couple of weeks? And then using MyFitnessPal. So although I touched on MyFitnessPal before I started working with you, I'd never really used it properly. So it was like, okay, you're going to a fat loss stage. You want to do it properly, start using the tool. So things felt uncomfortable a little bit because, it takes time. You're getting in MyFitnessPal. But it was like, right, okay, I need to use it properly. So, putting things in MyFitnessPal. So that, the steps, and then the workout. So although I was still doing 2 CrossFits, it was like, right, what am I going to do at home? So you program some workouts for me. So I was putting the kids to bed and getting in the living room at 8 at night with my dumbbells. And they were only like 30-minute sessions, but 2 or 3 times a week. And it was like, wow, I can do it. I've taken these exercises off. Do you know what I mean? I'm doing it. So I think that all fell into place. And then the weight started dropping. And it wasn't only the weight was dropping, but then I was gaining other stuff. So like motivation was there, my energy was up, I was sleeping better. And I was just starting to feel good about myself. My confidence was coming back. Do you know what I mean? And that spurs you on then when things start looking up.
This is so interesting listening to this though, because all of what you've just described sounds hard. Getting out from your desk for a walk, like actually putting the boundaries in to take a lunchtime, getting in the garage, whether it's, when the kids have gone to bed or first thing in the morning. I know that you're like an early bird now as well. And it's like none of that is comfortable. And that does take character. And you have to reach, I think a lot of women do have to reach a point where it's like, I'm at a crossroads here and I need to decide what I want for myself long term, because staying in this rut and convincing myself there's no way out of it is just keeping me comfortable. And if I
Yeah.
want it to look different, I've just got to be open to the change. And like you done that. So massive credit to you, because that in itself, that's nothing to do with me. That was all you. But I think what you've just highlighted is you get out the other side of it and everything that comes with it as a byproduct. I remember you saying to me, Nick, you have completely changed my life. And I was like, no, you've changed your own life. This is not me. And you were like, Nick, but I just feel like completely different. And I was like, oh, it's like, it's the most rewarding thing to hear as a coach, but also it's that moment that very few women will get to, because you've got to go through the uncomfortable stuff to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the stuff when no one's watching, when no one's cheering you on, or when the telly's calling your name, or the
Yeah.
glass of wine or whatever, and you just stayed really consistent. And it wasn't, I think, well, you can answer this one. It wasn't as all consuming as I think people might feel that it is. It is just about staying consistent, isn't it? In the
Yeah, it is. I think it's nailing them fundamentals, isn't it? Laying the foundations. And, you talk a lot about non-negotiables, and it is like what you're going to do and how you're going to do it sort of thing. And you talk about a lot about coming back to like your reason why. And I think that's really important, isn't it? Because it's like, and initially it was like, I'm going to be 40 in July. I'm going to do this sort of thing. And that's where the motivation definitely spurred me on. And I think the physical transformation happened quite quickly. And there was definitely peaks and troughs, you know what I mean? And, more difficult stages. So like tackling my first Easter. So that was quite soon after I started working with you. But I did my first sober Easter, do you know what I mean? And that was uncomfortable for people, for me, and I think people around me, because, Easter's always a big thing, we family and all the rest of it, we'll celebrate it, and the kids are off and whatnot. But I made the choice. Well, I'm not drinking alcohol because I want to get to where I want to go to. Do you know what I mean? So there was definitely decisions, but as you said at the beginning of this, there's a decision to be made, and you choose whether you make or what decision you make and what road you go down. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
That's
You think having like the weekly touch base, you've just said something then, and I was like, yeah, I do remember that. Like peaks and troughs,
yeah,
obviously, because totally normal, isn't it? You're going to question yourself.
yeah,
I do it now. If I enter into anything new, you're second guessing, like, am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? Like, when is the outcome going to arrive?
yeah,
And it's like, especially if you've been used to just checking in with the scales,
yeah,
if they're not reflecting the effort that you're making, then the majority of women will just throw the towel in.
yeah.
It's
And well, that was a huge thing as well, because you obviously, and working with a coach, you do progress pictures. And that's really daunting at first, because you're like, you're vulnerable, aren't you? You're opening up. And then you go and take a picture of yourself and you're like, you're joking. I'm like, really? And that's really hard at first, because you're looking at yourself. Well, I couldn't even look at the picture, and being honest, to begin with. And then obviously touching base every week. And then you put together pictures and go, have you seen your waist? Have you seen this? And it's the most rewarding thing. So much more rewarding than the scales, because it's like, oh my God, look what the picture's telling me. So sometimes people don't see it because you just walk around the same old hoodie or whatever.
yeah.
But underneath the hoodie, something's happening, and you're transforming, aren't you? So progress pictures is something that's been so uncomfortable, but it come out the other side. It's so rewarding, and you still ask now,
So he
don't
says
you?
about the pair of jeans.
The pair of jeans. Honestly, I'll never forget it, because so I was probably, I don't know, 6, 8 weeks into my journey, whatever, and weight was starting to move, and definitely starting to feel good about myself. But I kept coming back to these jeans about, I want to get into these jeans. So I knew I had a scale number as well, but I want to get into these jeans. So you said to me, take a picture in the jeans. I was like, okay.
You
And
were
I
like, they
put,
don't even zip up. And I was like, just get them to where they go up to
yeah.
and take the
So,
picture.
and I don't even know whether you remember, but my face in that picture, I had the biggest gob on, because I was like, I felt like I've come so far, but then I can't get the jeans up. Like, you're joking. Anyway, 6 weeks later, the jeans flew up, and the picture that I sent, I didn't even concentrate on my waist with the jeans zipping
Achievement.
up. It was my face. Like, I was absolutely like a Cheshire cat, because I was like, I was so happy the jeans went up. So yeah, all these like milestones, you know what I mean? It wasn't easy, but
Even that, you've just highlighted there like 12 weeks worth of just chipping away.
yeah,
6 weeks, like putting in the fundamentals, showing up, getting to grips with your non-negotiables. Then you get to that 6 week period and you're like, okay, now I've got to tackle this pair of jeans. And then it was another 6 weeks. And by the end of 12 weeks, it's like, oh my gosh, everything has started to click.
yeah,
We've way surpassed that pair of jeans, obviously, but I think the self-belief that you build up in those first 12 weeks of like, okay, I can do these hard things. And also, like, do you remember getting past the weeks and the days when you did have like the self-doubt?
yeah. And you get to the stage, don't you, where you're just like, is this life changing? Is this just a phase, or do I want this? But then you come out the other side and you just realize, like, yeah, I don't want to be in this yo-yo diet anymore. And even now, doing what I'm doing now might not, it might not work for me in another 6 months' time. But knowing now how much you can change, you've just got to be on that roller coaster that change is good, and you've just got to be used to it. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. As you're saying, as I do say quite a lot, you've just got to be, it is uncomfortable, but everything outweighs it when you come out the other side.
I always remember that tip that you shared, and I still share this with loads of clients. So for anyone listening and works from home or in part works from home, and you said to me, Nick, I'm just getting my food out for the entire day and I'm putting it on the side. So I'm not giving myself the option to go into the fridge or the cupboards. I'm gonna imagine I'm going into the office and I'm gonna give myself a packed lunch, and that's my food for the day. And I'm gonna eat it in whatever order I choose, but nothing more is going past my lips until tonight's dinner. And I thought, God, that's such an effective way to take control.
Yeah, I still do it now. Yeah,
Yeah, I share that with so many clients because that's probably one of the biggest struggles, isn't it? It's like, again, life has just been made so much more comfortable. You can work from home, but what do you do the minute that you feel stressed or tired or bored? Well, the kitchen is right there.
yeah,
And so without even realizing it, we just we've just got this availability at all times to go and have a little pick.
Yeah.
or self-soothe or give ourselves a little dopamine hit or whatever. So that's one tip from you that I still share now. But okay, I think this is one thing everybody will be interested to know. So obviously you've gone through this whole physical transformation. Now, if you've seen any of the photographs on my social media, ladies who are listening, there's never a photograph that I post of you that I don't get someone commenting saying, "Oh my God, she looks insane." But how are you managing it now? Like obviously hubby works away. You've got two kiddos, like they're obviously growing and changing and going through different stages of life. How do you manage it all?
So I think now a lot of the work we've done, definitely in the last 6 months, is on mindset, isn't it? And I've realised now that you need discipline. You know, we talk a lot about the structure and the bringing it back to your reason why. And I truly believe now I've got a structure that helps me do that, plan. And I know it sounds like all like zen and like, really? Do you need all? I've got a full time job. How do you want me to put a structure in place and a goal in place and all this? But I feel like now, you know, a typical week for me is Monday to Friday, I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. People might go, "What, are you crazy?" But I go to bed at 9:30. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just shifting my day around. So I'm up at 5:30 and I get up and go in the garage. And hubby's either here and I'm out to CrossFit twice a week and then we tag team, or he's away. So I'm in the garage and that's all I've got. And probably twice a week, I'm doing just weight sessions. And I say weight, I've just got some dumbbells at home, nothing like fantastic. It's a small garage. It's not like a big gym or anything like that. It's literally a small space where to go. And I'm just doing a couple of like nothing major. It's a couple of 2 or 3 exercises for like 10 reps. And then I'll do some stretching before, some stretching afterwards, and then a bit of a walk on the walking pad just to, right, I'm up for the day. And then, you know, it's getting me and the kids up ready, you know, full day's work, full days at school. And then at night, I just make sure I'm prepped, constantly prepping. So probably a Sunday, I'll do a couple of days prep, and then midweek, I'll do a couple of more days prep. So I feel like nutrition, I'm prepped and I know what I'm doing. And then I've always got a plan because I know what I'm doing from an exercise point of view. But I think realizing what exercises works as well. So I like the CrossFit. I like the fast paced style sessions. But I think the last 6 months has been a bit of an eye opener to realize that they're not always beneficial and I need to slow down what I'm doing. So a big change last year was I had an injury, didn't I, in like July. So I had a burn under my arm and I ended up with surgery and stitches and all the rest of it. So I've gone from being in the gym or at home lifting, like, you know, arm movements a lot, to, you know, I couldn't do anything. So I had an infection after it. I had stitches a lot. So the only thing I could do was walk. I know that sounds really, and people who've got injuries out there and stuff, I don't know how they manage, because touch wood, up until that point, I'd always been quite lucky that I'd never like suffered from injuries and stuff. So, but the thing that came out of that was like I lost a bit of weight. And I think because everything just slowed down, the only thing that was in my control then was nutrition. But I had a bit of a panic, didn't I, saying, what, am I going to lose muscle because I'm not training and stuff? But you were like, it's only a short period. We just need to like ride it through. But I come out the other side of that and I was out the gym for probably like 7 weeks. And even when I got the go ahead from the physio to go back, it was still on like a gradual, like, you know, you can only do this and you can only do this sort of thing. But it just made me realize that actually slowing down can be beneficial for you. So I think I bring that into my training now as well. I just realised that.
Growth from a mindset perspective in the last 12 months. And this is why like 3 years sounds like a long time to have worked together, but there's genuinely different stages.
Yeah.
Like you go through that initial fat loss phase, and that is just all about educating, like unlearning bad
Yeah.
habits, unlearning random behaviors that just align to slimming world, that it's like, no, you don't need to be doing any of that crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Like this is it's got to be a way of living. So
Yeah.
and then you come out to the other side and it's like, okay, now how do I maintain this new aesthetic? And then we start to plug in fitness goals. And then obviously, and I don't know whether you'll touch on this, but there's been a period where like the emotional side of fitness has been something that we've had to work on. And it's kind of, it is also, it's the mindset, isn't it? But I think as women, we do go through these peaks and troughs where emotionally we've just got other stuff going on.
Yeah.
It dominates. And it's like, am I still able to show up for myself when I've got all of these other things? And then like last year, it was really just more about the mental side of it. And like for you sort of like, is it a juxtaposition? I'm not sure. Whereby you had in your mind, like you knew the fighting weight that you wanted to be at, you knew how you wanted to look and feel on holiday, but then you also loved that buzz of the CrossFit training sessions.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you, we're still going to do CrossFit, but we need to pare it back a little bit if we want this aesthetic goal. Or we let go of that aesthetic goal. But the two things are probably not going to go hand in hand because we're
Yeah.
not recovering well enough from this amount of overtraining. And so that injury actually was a bit of a blessing because, I mean, touch wood, you're right out the other side and it's done and
Yeah.
dusted. But at that time, it gave you a bit of headspace, didn't it, to step back and go, hang on, I've got options here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's options. You can I think this is like obviously the rise of High Rocks and CrossFit and everything else. It's amazing because it's bringing people together and it's improving fitness levels. But I am speaking to more and more women who just their minds is they're like they're at a loss where they can't shift weight and they're just training flat to the floor for like 5 sessions a week.
Yeah. That is hard going. And then the recovery from it as well. And like, I know we touched on this, but the increasing calories to recover, that felt uncomfortable because it's like, I don't need to be eating another 300 calories a day or whatever the number is.
Mm.
But then now, that 300 calories doesn't have to be your crisps or your junk food
Yeah,
people might associate with increasing calories. It's been like the fuel I've needed to either get through them sessions or recover the other side, you know what I mean? And I found that really beneficial. And that's why, I still need to work with a coach because, you're learning from it all the time. And it's like, you don't need to down this number of calories or, I mean, I'm not even tracking calories at the moment as well. I'm at that stage now where I don't need to be, do you know what I mean? And
Holy Grail.
yeah,
In an amazing shape and not tracking calories, but like hats off to you because you put the work in, like over a period of years. And I think the other thing is that like we sweat over the calories, and the majority of women will feel that like if you're on some sort of fat loss phase or whatever stage of the journey, that it should feel hard. And I've always said to you, this should feel like it's just a lifestyle. Like you're not
yeah,
actually thinking about food 24/7.
yeah, and that's the thing,
Get
yeah,
through sessions and feel strong. You recover well afterwards. And you're not haggling with yourself overnight whether you should eat or not or have something like it's just you just feel at ease.
yeah, yeah. And I didn't think I'd ever not use my fitness pal. And I remember you saying, there will be a period where you'll get used to it and you just won't use it. And I'm at that stage now. I mean, I know there'll be periods where, coming up to the summer holidays or whatever, you'll go back to it and you will.
Yeah.
But as as the norm now, you don't use it. So I think anyone starting off and you feel a bit overwhelmed with all this, it's just a period. You just get in and get out the other side, and then you learn how to live your life. Do you know what I mean? But it's just taking care of yourself. I just feel like it's so important, and it is a way of living, and you can do it full time. It doesn't have to be you just go on a diet because you're getting married or you go on a diet because you're going on holiday. Like, forget the diet. A big thing as well is the weekends. You're either on it or you're not.
Yeah.
You've got to have a plan for your weekend.
Yeah.
And I've come out the other side of you with that as well because I used to be like, yeah, on it Monday to Friday, and then I'll just wing it for the weekend. Well, I know now I can't wing it for the weekend. I'll still have the same breakfast Monday to Sunday. I've got a couple of breakfasts and I eat the same thing because
So that was something that I was going to bring up to you was like the repetition with food and like, just keeping it basic. But that point about being on it or off it and having a
yeah,
plan for the weekend. Because I think, like, my perspective is that people feel that's boring. Like, oh, well, I don't want to have a plan for the weekend. That's part of life. I want to be able to be spontaneous and eat what I want. And having a plan actually gives you more freedom.
yeah,
I think winging it always puts you in a position where you either feel guilty afterwards, like it keeps people in the all or nothing mindset, I think.
no, it does, yeah,
Because winging it at the weekend, I know when I've gone places that I'm winging it, it doesn't work to my advantage because you get there, restaurant, cafe, whatever, as an example, and there are no options that align with what I would choose to have. So then I find myself having to choose something because it's the only rubbish option. And I'm like, if I had just had a plan for myself,
Yeah.
Probably would have chose to go somewhere different, or I would have factored this indulgence in, because we don't really want to be winging it, do we?
No,
Don't
exactly.
want to
Yeah.
be winging it. We know that that's not going to keep us feeling at our best. Like mentally, when you're winging it, you just don't. And it's not to say we can't have like a bit of spontaneity, obviously, but if it's every single weekend, it's like if you want the freedom to be able to do the things that you want to do and wear what you want to wear and have good energy, you've got to have a plan for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that energy is huge, isn't it? Because literally, like I'm no big cook, and we definitely don't do everything whole foods in the house. But I have become more of a label reader, and I know that sounds like, but the stuff now that's in foods that will make you feel rubbish it just has a massive impact, doesn't it? So I just find, it's easier to be at home, or if you are going out, plan for what you're going to have, because otherwise you come out the other side and it doesn't have, you might feel nice eating it, but then when you've had it, do you know what I mean?
You
Or if
find that
you're doing that all the time, I'm
you
just,
find that you're more conscious with that as well for the kids.
yes, massively, yeah. And do you know, I even look now, the stuff that when the kids were younger, I go, oh, it's all right. But now, absolutely, we all eat the same food. And I'm trying to speak to the kids about going, listen, that might look like chocolate, kids, but it really isn't chocolate. And, you know, I don't restrict the kids. I do let them choose and stuff. But there's certain points where I just think they don't need to be having that. Like,
I read something the other day, and it opened my mind, because we're always in this position as parents, aren't we, whereby you can't do right for doing wrong.
yeah,
Like, and if you go on social media, as always, you'll find something that echoes what you want to hear. So because I'm quite pro educating kids on nutrition. Now you can go on social media and you'll see all of the reasons why you should never do that, because they're only kids and you've got to let them grow and be kids and all the rest of it. But it was this, I don't know if I've spoken about this before on the podcast, but it was this like a write up from like Chinese perspective. Obviously different cultures have a different like way of thinking. And it was saying in China, the grown-ups make the decisions for the children largely. And it's not because they want to take freedom away from the kids, but it's because as an adult, we have got the power of hindsight. So we know if we let you choose the McDonald's over, I don't know, the homemade chicken roast, for example, well, in the moment, that might feel more fun, but longer term, you're going to be more regulated going to bed. You're probably going to have a better sleep. You're going to feel better in the morning if you have the whole foods meal. So it's fun to let you choose, but we know as adults the long term implications of the decisions that you're making.
yeah,
And it's like, oh, I needed to read it almost to like back up my theory of help and guide the kids with the decisions
yeah,
they make. It's even like in sports. I tell my girls, if you want to get to new levels in sports, you've got to go and do the training, kids.
yeah,
Like, you got to pull yourself away from the telly. It's still going to be there. We're going to training. I know you don't feel like it, but do you want to be competing and doing all of the things? Yes. Okay. This is part of the
what
process,
we need to
guys.
do. Yeah,
And then they always feel amazing out the other side of it, but they haven't got the perspective to know. Like us now with the sessions, you've just said, get up at 5:30 in the morning. And I bet you most of the time, and for you, and you can speak on this, you do it because you know how you're going to feel on the other side, not because you wake up feeling super motivated at 5:30 in
oh,
the morning.
absolutely. I mean, it's the easiest thing, especially on the dark nights, when you're in the dark mornings and stuff. But the easiest thing is, should I just snooze? But I can't. It's like, I know, get up, because in an hour I'm going to feel great. You know what I mean? So, and then I say feel great. It's not even just a tick box, but the endorphins kick in and all the rest of it. And I just know it's the start of my day. And if I can train in the morning, I will do. If I can't, I've got to train at night, I'll train at night. But they're my non-negotiables, you know what I mean? I know I need to do something. So yeah. But the kids start copying you as well, do you know what I mean? So they'll
Well,
be on the
it's going
walking
to come on to
paddle.
that and
Yeah.
see what the kids think of like mummy taking care of herself.
Yeah. So even at the weekend, you know what I mean? The three of us were in the carriage at the weekend. The kids have got little dumbbells and stuff. And, you know, they have a little go, and it's just dead nice to see. And it's like, come on, or,
Like that.
I'm like, come on, kids, you want to get your pull up in, don't you? So that, we're just encouraging them, do you know what I mean? Just to have that little bit of a, we're not sat just watching a film. We just, we can move. I think people have this, we're chilling this weekend, don't they? But you don't have to, just be lying down on a couch. You can do other stuff that just, you can be relaxed, can't you?
It's funny, isn't it? Because cultures change so much that like the norm is so far removed from a fit, healthy, active lifestyle unless you normalize it. Like
Yeah,
you really do normalize it with your kids. I see on your Instagram, like you guys are always like on your bikes or just doing something that's outdoors and active. But it's weird. I think it's weird for other people that you are so active. Like it seems against the norm, but for you guys, it's just so normal.
yeah,
I think it's important to realize it doesn't matter what stage you're at, you can shift your norm at any
yeah,
moment.
yeah. And that's the point. It's like, you know, people like listening or whatever go, am I too late to start? Or where do I start? Whatever the point is, you've got to be willing to do it. And once you do it, but you keep coming back to your reason why, don't you? Do you know what I mean? You've got to have a reason to do it. And then it should just spur you on, because it absolutely does. You know what I mean? My kids are my reason why, and you just keep going, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And I think when you can detach yourself away from a scale weight, and it is hard to do, and this is why I think coaching is important because it's not even just the coaches, it's having like the community and the support of like other
yeah,
women who you're gonna have a day when you wake up and the scales have jumped up, or you don't feel motivated, or you miss a workout, or you eat off plan, or whatever. And you need that support to remember, okay, but I'm not doing this for the scales to give me a round of applause. I'm doing it because 10 years from now, I still want to be fit, strong, and healthy for my kids, or however many years from now. And it's like, so actually, every day, just in whatever way I can, counts.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But the community you just touched on is so important, because sometimes it can be lonely. You know, if you're on your journey and you just think everyone else is doing this over here, and they're rolling their eyes going, oh, she's over there on the walking pad or whatever it might be. But you know, you've got this community and you know what you've created and stuff, but you can just reach out because somebody will get it. Do you know what I mean? And you just, yeah, you just want to
And
be
that's
thriving
hard.
over there.
Like do you find that hard when you're in like social situations and maybe you've got that peer pressure and like the culture is still very much, isn't it? Like, drink and stay up late and lie in and don't go to the gym. And how do you
Um,
sort of like get around that?
I definitely found it hard in you know, in the initial stages and stuff, and it'd be, you know, the peer pressure. But I think the more I'm doing it now, the more I'm showing up. So, like, you know, going out with the girls before Christmas and stuff. So, you know, I did have a drink with them, but I stopped drinking when I was done. Do you know what I mean? And it's about know me limit. Like I've always said, oh, I'm never drinking again, never drinking again. I've always been that person.
Yeah.
But I really like mean I'm different now. Do you know what I mean? It's like I just don't enjoy drinking like I used to. Do you know what I mean? So why am I doing it? Or so I think as the time goes on, the more you go out or the more you see people, and think they respect you now, because you're not just saying you're doing something, then you're not doing it. You're actually
Yeah.
showing up on it, aren't you? So it's getting easier the more you do it, definitely. But I think them early days, you do feel like I'm the only person here, and people are like, oh, you can start next week. You know, it's just a diet. I'm like, no, it's not a diet now. It's a lifestyle, and this is what I want to do. So
I think that's so big for like your mental resilience. Like you've got to follow through on what you said you're gonna do
yeah,
because you've got to build this capacity, haven't you? Like this mental resilience in yourself. And if you keep allowing your boundaries to be knocked down, then you almost lose trust in yourself. Like
yeah,
if you make a plan, you can duck out to that plan at any moment because it's you versus you and you don't mind. But if you've built this sort of like almost like agreement with yourself that we're doing it, it's weird, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
It's like a weird unspoken rule that you have with yourself. But I
yeah,
think it holds up in all other areas of life.
yeah, absolutely.
It's that like you just have this trust and like self-confidence.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
And do you feel like it's making a difference to how like you show up as a mom and a wife and like the family dynamics?
Yeah, absolutely. Even not even just in our house. I feel like, you know, like me mum, and I see them now and then getting their walks in, do you know what I mean? And but yeah, definitely at home. So our youngest been diagnosed with ADHD. So that's been a whole other battle in itself. You know, we've had years of like, you know, education battles, local authority battles, all that. So, but you know, Travis is thriving. He's doing great. He's intelligent. You know, he is. He's brilliant. But we do things. We have to do things differently for him. And I
Yeah.
feel like if I'm not this version of me, how can I show up for my kids? And I honestly believe like I have to be this strong, do you know what I mean, for my kids, not just for Travis as well, but yeah, it's impacting us all. Like my husband's got a gym membership, he's doing brilliant at the moment, so it's changed us all, and we're all, it helps all being on the same page.
Yeah, that was sort of like the emotional side of things that I touched on earlier, because I remember you going through that whole period with Travis, and it is such, it's a massive part of your life. It's
Yeah,
your child.
yeah,
It's like it's mad for me as a coach, and I've got other clients who I work with who have got children in a similar position, and like, I'll have clients who'll start with me and the goal is fat loss, but then all of a sudden the goal shifts because they've realised what an impact that they're making to their own kids. And it's like the win will be the way that they showed up as a mum. And it's not even related to scale weight. Like the winning because, you know what, I stood the ground at, stood my ground at like my daughter's school, or I was able to get in the water park with her, or, whatever it might be.
yeah,
Different things in all different areas. But
yeah, it does. You can
I
just show up for your kids, and it just makes, yeah, you just feel proud that you can do it, because I feel switched on. I feel I've got the capacity to do it, and I don't think I'd feel like that if I didn't have all this. Do you know what I mean? It all comes
yeah,
as a product of looking after yourself, and you've got to look after yourself, haven't you? So
and it's especially now, like in our 40s, and just
yeah,
how wild of a ride we've got ahead of us. But it's okay.
we
We're
are.
armed and ready for the
Yes,
onslaught.
yeah.
So, just a quick takeaway, I suppose, for anybody listening, or two things. First of all, maybe just a quick share on sort of like some of the typical struggles that you still face and how you get around that.
I suppose it is just the peaks and troughs. Sometimes it's realizing what's always worked doesn't always work. So, sometimes I'll come to you and go, Nick, help! Like I'm not sleeping this week or something, and there'll be something causing it. But the sleep then impacts all of the other pillars, doesn't it? So I suppose it's still real. I suppose it's taking time to reflect on, just because it looks like it's plain sailing, or just because it worked last week, there might be a curveball this week, but how are you going to tackle it? So I think it's not really a struggle. I think it's just a reflection that you still have to change it up a little bit. You know what I mean? And just because it worked last week doesn't change this week. So it's not a struggle. It's just a constant workaround. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think you've found it a little bit easier to take it easy on yourself and not be so hard on yourself when everything's not deemed to be perfect?
I'm working on it. I think it's still work in progress. I think I am still hard on myself.
Yeah.
But mindset's huge, and I think that's still my biggest thing I need to work on. Do you know what I mean? People think about the physical transformation, don't they, when you look at health and well-being? But I think mindset is still huge. So I'm definitely better than what I was. And if I have a rubbish day, I have a rubbish day. But a big thing for me is it's not your decision that you take at a time, it's your next decision. So, okay, if I've gone off plan, or I didn't get the train session in, which doesn't really happen, but if it didn't, okay, draw a line under it. What you're going to do tomorrow to make a difference, or what you're going to do tonight to make a difference. You know what I mean? I think that's a big shift for me. It's what's your next decision. So don't be so hard on yourself if something didn't happen, or what did happen, and don't try and undo it. It's happened. What are you going to do next?
Yeah, I think well. What's
Yeah.
your guilty pleasure? And this is a little bit of a side note. When it comes to like the food, what's your indulgence?
I mean, people go, don't they? They're either savoury or sweet. I haven't for it all.
Or both.
Yeah, I do. I think it's just chocolate, but I think even that now I realise how much rubbish is in chocolate. So
Oh, it's
even if
sick, isn't it?
it's horrible, isn't it? So I know if I eat loads of chocolate, I just want more chocolate, and it's like it's
Yeah,
rubbish. I'm probably more sweet than
so
savoury.
addictive. It's like there's been a big thing now, hasn't there? A big campaign against dairy milk because it's full of palm oil, which is obviously this inflammatory oil, which is causing all kinds of disease.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh, that was my one. Like, if I'm going to have chocolate, it's got to be dairy milk.
dairy milk. Yeah,
I'm like, there's going to be nothing left. I'll have to just have a date with some peanut butter and get over it.
it does the job.
Yeah. So, okay, last little share then for anybody listening in terms of takeaways then for what works for you and how you've managed to transform. It's quite a big question actually. And what advice you would give to anybody who's just starting out and who's feeling a bit overwhelmed?
So I would say you just need to be easy on yourself. I think you need to start off small and not have huge expectations. like the fundamentals I said at the beginning about, what steps should you do, just increase it slightly. Do you drink the water? You talk about a lot about the non-negotiables. Just pick a couple of non-negotiables a day, and then next week just increase it by another one. Do you know what I mean? I think be kind to yourself, but be willing to, if you want to change, be willing to put the work in and it feel uncomfortable. But just know that it's only ever a period of time. You will come out the other side. So I think that's important. I think things that work really well for me is at the moment, and you just actually introduced it into the community, is about cutting off of an evening meal. So have your evening meal and stop eating. So I always used to, when I first started working with you, I tried intermittent fasting. And actually, just a funny point on that, when I heard about intermittent fasting, I'd only ever thought of fasting as a starve yourself for 24 hours and
Yeah.
raise money for charity or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was a thing, but I always trained of an evening. So intermittent fasting really helped me in the beginning because it was that break. I wasn't eating my tea till like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then having breakfast at 7. So I pushed that window back, and that really helped me. But now, because I'm trained in the morning, I have to have breakfast after I've trained. So cutting off for an evening is like a massive game changer. Not only does it help you like have a period then to like digest your food, I find I'm sleeping a lot better because I've stopped eating. So my body's doing what it needs to do overnight. Do you know what I mean? So stopping eating. A big thing is structure and having a plan. Like I said about the weekend, don't just think you can wing your weekend. Even when you get to where you want to be, I think it's so important to still have a plan. When you're getting your training sessions in, like what are you eating? What's the family eating? What's your shopping list going to look like? All that kind of stuff. And I know it sounds like I've got a full-time job over here. I haven't got time to think about all these things. But if you don't plug it in, it's not going to happen. So
Just going to say that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, what would you say to somebody listening thinking, well, I've got kids and we've got clubs of a weekend and I've got a job, and
But we all have. And
we all have.
if you want something, you can make it happen. And I feel so passionate about it because I have come out the other side and this is my norm now. And, I'm chocker in work, we're chocker with the kids, everything. But this is part of my day to day. Do you know what I mean? Okay, right. What are we eating tomorrow? What needs to come out the freezer, or what, you know what I mean?
And what would you say to anyone listening who has normalised just being at the bottom of the priority list at home? And so that's the reason that they can't almost get their head around doing anything different because there's no time left, essentially.
I think it's just that realization that if you really want to show up being the best version of yourself, you've got to be a bit selfish. You've got to, okay, I can't make the kids footy this weekend. Somebody else can have to take them because that's the only time I get my workout in. Or block your diary in. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's got access to your diary and work because they're putting meetings in. Well, actually, I'm going to take control of my own diary. I'm going to put a slot in this week because I'm going to go out for a walk. Or I think you've just got to be selfish. And once you realise that, I think once you start taking care of yourself, you realise that you can't be the bottom of the pile because how are you being the best you can be? But you can't.
And we can wrap up on this then because I don't want to keep you too long, but it is so important, isn't it, that our kids see us take care of ourselves and that they actually see us treat ourselves well, because so many of us as women, our story starts from what we saw our own mum do. We didn't listen to what she said, we just followed what she done. And then we are doing the exact same in not prioritizing ourselves. We're keeping the legacy alive. And our own kids are going to grow up thinking that, like, oh, once you're a mum, you don't look after yourself because mums are just there to take care of everyone else. But I want my girls to have a different outlook, but I've got to show them that. And I struggle with this one. Even like of a night, my girls will say, you go in the gym in the morning, mummy. And it's like they cheer if I say that I'm not going because I'll be here when they wake up. So obviously you can imagine when I'm saying I'm going, and they've got used to it now, and it feels, it's like gut wrenching.
Yeah, it feels uncomfortable. Yeah.
But I'm like, do you know what, kids? It's 6 a.m. Likelihood is you're going to be up 15 minutes and then I'll be home.
Yeah.
And it's got to be done.
Yeah.
And
I had a conversation actually with Jessie the other day, and she said to me, we were talking about kids' clubs or something. And I said, but you play football now, I didn't do any of that when I was young. And she went, but look at you now, mum. And it was honestly, it was such a lovely comment because I'm like, they do notice what you're doing.
nice.
They know that you're looking after yourself, sort of thing. So hopefully it is all benefiting everybody.
Well, I've loved having you on the podcast. I feel as though we could sit and chat for hours, actually. I've got a million and one other questions, I'm like, in my brain. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Anybody listening, if you've got any other questions for feel free. Pop them either in the comments below if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, or fire them over on DM, or pop them inside of the Thriving Women community. And yeah, just thank you so much for sharing them.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody listening, I look forward to hearing from you all and seeing you all on the next episode of the Nicola Graham Podcast.
Thanks, Nick.